Story 1. The Ghost of the Maracanã Stadium, Brazil. The Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro is one of the most iconic soccer venues in the world. But amidst its grandeur lies a chilling tale that dates back to 1950. During the World Cup that year, Brazil was poised to win in front of a home crowd. In the final match against Uruguay, the entire country expected victory. However, in a shocking turn of events, Uruguay won 2-1, a loss that devastated the nation. Legend has it that the soul of a Brazilian fan who took his life after the loss haunts the stadium. Several night watchmen have reported hearing the ghostly sounds of cheering, even when the stadium was empty. One security guard claimed he saw a man dressed in 1950s-style clothing pacing the stands with a fallen expression, only for him to vanish when approached. The spirit, some say, is forever trapped in the stadium, eternally reliving the heartbreak of that fateful day. Story 2. The Curse of the Bambino, USA. The Curse of the Bambino is one of baseball's most infamous superstitions. In 1919, the Boston Red Sox sold Babe Ruth, also known as the Bambino, to the New York Yankees. Before the sale, the Red Sox were one of the most successful teams in Major League Baseball, but after the sale, they went without a World Series championship for 86 years. This period of drought was attributed to the curse of Ruth, who was said to have brought bad luck upon the Red Sox. Over the decades, strange occurrences happened to the team, including bizarre injuries, inexplicable losses, and late-game collapses. In 2003, in Game 7 of the American League Championship Series against the Yankees, the Red Sox were just 5 outs away from going to the World Series when they collapsed and lost the game. Fans swore they saw shadows resembling Ruth lurking in the stands, laughing at their misfortune. The curse was finally lifted in 2004 when the Red Sox won the World Series, but even today, some fans believe Ruth's ghost still haunts Fenway Park, waiting to bring misfortune once again. Story 3. The Ghost Player of Kenilworth Road, England. Kenilworth Road, home to Luton Town Football Club, has been the site of eerie occurrences for decades. The stadium, built in 1905, is steeped in history, and perhaps something more sinister. Players and staff have reported seeing a shadowy figure running on the pitch late at night. This ghost player is said to wear an old Luton Town kit and is often seen sprinting down the sidelines before vanishing into thin air. In one incident in the early 1990s, a groundskeeper working late heard the sound of cleats on the turf and saw the figure dart across the field. Thinking it was a prank, he approached, but the figure disappeared before his eyes. Some say the ghost is that of a former player who died tragically young and is still trying to play the game he loved. The sightings continue to this day, leaving many to wonder if Kenilworth Road is haunted by a spirit that refuses to leave. Story 4. The Dark Spirit of Camp Randall Stadium, USA. Camp Randall Stadium, home to the University of Wisconsin Badgers, has a dark past that dates back to the Civil War. The site was originally a Union Army training camp and later a prison camp for Confederate soldiers. Many prisoners died due to poor conditions, and it's said their restless spirits still linger. In the years since, players and staff have reported unsettling experiences, especially during night games or late practices. Some have felt cold spots on the field, seen shadowy figures in the stands, or heard the faint sound of drums echoing through the stadium. One player, in the 1970s, claimed that during a practice, he saw a spectral figure in an old military uniform watching from the sidelines, only for it to vanish moments later. The eerie atmosphere has led to whispers that the stadium is cursed, with the spirits of those who died at the camp still wandering the grounds. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the history of Camp Randall adds a chilling layer to the game day experience. Story 6. The Phantom Runner of the Boston Marathon, USA. The Boston Marathon, one of the most famous long-distance races in the world, has seen its fair share of triumphs and tragedies. But among the stories of perseverance and athletic achievement, there is a tale of something much more eerie. In the 1940s, a runner named Bobby was expected to do well in the race, but she collapsed and died of exhaustion just a few miles from the finish line. Ever since her tragic death, runners and spectators have reported seeing a ghostly figure of a woman dressed in an old-fashioned running outfit appearing near the same spot where Bobby collapsed. Some runners have claimed to see her running beside them, only for her to disappear when they glance again. Others have felt a cold presence and an overwhelming sense of exhaustion at that particular part of the course, even if they were feeling fine just moments before. The ghostly runner is said to silently urge others to finish the race she never could, a spectral figure forever trapped in a race that never ends. Story 7. The Cursed Vault of the Bernabéu of Spain. The Santiago Bernabéu Stadium, home to Real Madrid, is one of the most prestigious football stadiums in the world. But beneath its seats lies a dark secret. Legend has it that during construction in the 1940s, a worker died in a tragic accident and was buried in the concrete foundation of the stadium. Since then, there have been whispers of a curse tied to the vault of the Bernabéu. Some fans and players have reported strange occurrences in the stadium, particularly in the old locker rooms. Objects would mysteriously move, lights would flicker, and eerie whispers could be heard when no one else was around. On several occasions, players have felt a cold hand on their shoulders, only to turn around and find nothing there. One particularly unsettling story involves a player who, after a bad game, claimed to have seen a shadowy figure standing in the tunnel leading to the pitch. The figure allegedly whispered, "This place was built on death," before vanishing. The player left the club shortly afterward, refusing to ever return to the Bernabéu. Story 8. The Legend of the Black Sox, USA. The Black Sox scandal of 1919 is one of the darkest chapters in baseball history, where 8 members of the Chicago White Sox were accused of intentionally losing the World Series in exchange for money from gamblers. The scandal shocked the nation and resulted in the players being banned from professional baseball for life. But the scandal also left behind an eerie legacy. Some fans and staff members claim that the spirit of shoeless Joe Jackson, one of the banned players, haunts the old Comiskey Park, the original White Sox stadium. Jackson, who always denied any involvement in the fix, is said to roam the empty stands, searching for the redemption he never received in life. On several occasions, groundskeepers have reported seeing a figure resembling Jackson, dressed in an old White Sox uniform, practicing his swing on the field late at night. Others have heard the faint sound of a baseball hitting a bat, even when the stadium is empty. The legend persists even though Comiskey Park was demolished in 1991, with some claiming that the new stadium, Guaranteed Rate Field, has inherited the haunting. Story 9. The Vengeful Spirit of the Tragic Boxer Philippines. In 1961, a promising young Filipino boxer named Gabriel Flash Alord was training for a major fight when he suddenly collapsed in the ring. He died from a brain aneurysm, shocking the nation and leaving fans heartbroken. However, his death didn't just leave an emotional scar, it seemingly left a supernatural one as well. Since his death, several boxers and trainers have reported seeing Alord's ghost in the gym where he trained. His apparition is usually seen late at night, shadowboxing in a corner or running laps around the ring. Some say they've heard the sound of boxing gloves hitting a punching bag when no one is in the gym. The most chilling encounters come from those who have sparred in the ring. Some boxers have claimed that they felt as if they were being watched closely during training, only to see a figure resembling Alord in the mirror, giving them a stern look. Others have felt a sudden, intense pressure on their chests during sparring sessions, as if someone was forcing them to drop their guard. Many believe that Alord's spirit is trying to ensure that no one else suffers the same fate as he did. Story 10. The Haunted Ice Rink of Prague, Czech Republic. In the heart of Prague lies an old historic ice rink known as Zimní stadion Svanes. The rink, built in 1932, was the site of many legendary hockey matches, but it also holds a more sinister reputation. In the 1950s, a young hockey player died in a tragic accident during a game, suffering a fatal head injury after colliding with the boards. Since then, the rink has been plagued by strange and terrifying occurrences. Players have reported hearing the sound of skates cutting into the ice late at night, even when the rink is empty. Some have seen a ghostly figure of a hockey player skating alone on the ice, only to disappear when they approach. The most unsettling encounters have been with the locker rooms, where players have felt an intense cold and unease, with some claiming to have seen wet footprints leading to an empty locker. In one particularly eerie incident, a team that had just won a championship game reported seeing the ghostly player standing at the edge of the rink, watching them celebrate. When they looked again, he was gone. The rink has since been closed and abandoned, but those who remember the stories believe the ghost of the young player still lingers, forever tied to the ice where he met his untimely end. Story 11. The Vanishing Spectator of Autódromo José Carlos Pace, Brazil. The Autódromo José Carlos Pace, better known as Interlagos, is a famous racing circuit in São Paulo, Brazil, known for hosting the Brazilian Grand Prix. While it's a beloved venue for motorsports fans, there's a chilling tale that has been whispered among the locals for decades. During a race in the 1970s, a massive crash resulted in the death of several drivers. Among the chaos, a fan was said to have climbed over the barriers to help, but he was struck by debris and killed instantly. Since then, spectators and drivers have reported seeing a man standing alone at the same spot where the fan died. He's described as wearing outdated clothes, and his expression is one of deep sorrow. The strangest part: when anyone approaches him, he vanishes. One driver, during a nighttime test session, saw the figure standing by the trackside and thought it was a track official. But when he circled back, the figure was gone. The driver later learned the legend and swore he'd seen the ghost of the tragic fan. Some believe the spirit is still there, forever trying to assist in a race that ended in disaster. Story 12. The Cursed Medal of the Munich Olympics, Germany. The 1972 Munich Olympics are tragically remembered for the terrorist attack that led to the deaths of 11 Israeli athletes. But beyond that horrific event, there's another lesser-known, eerie tale involving one of the medals awarded during those games. It is said that a bronze medalist, overwhelmed by survivors' guilt, believed the medal was cursed. The athlete started experiencing terrible nightmares in which the faces of the slain athletes would appear, accusing him of being alive while they were not. He began to hear whispers at night, voices he claimed were speaking in Hebrew, despite not understanding the language. Unable to cope with the torment, he eventually threw the medal into a nearby river, hoping to rid himself of the curse. However, he claimed that the nightmares continued, and he started seeing the medal appear in random places, like on his bedside table or in his sports bag, despite having discarded it. The athlete's mental state deteriorated, and he eventually left the sport. To this day, the story of the cursed medal is passed among athletes who believe that some medals, no matter how valuable, come with a heavy price. Story 13. The Witch of Montevideo Stadium, Uruguay. The Estadio Centenario in Montevideo, Uruguay, is a revered site, known for hosting the first FIFA World Cup final in 1930. However, it's also home to a spine-chilling legend involving a witch's curse. According to local folklore, a woman who lived near the stadium was a known witch, infamous for her dark rituals. She was reportedly furious when the stadium was built, as it disrupted her secluded life. In revenge, she cursed the stadium, declaring that any important match held there would be plagued with misfortune. Since then, there have been numerous reports of bizarre and unexplained incidents during matches. One of the most famous occurrences was in the 1950s when, during a decisive match, a sudden thick fog rolled into the stadium, obscuring visibility entirely. The game was halted, and many players claimed to have felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Spectators reported seeing shadowy figures moving through the mist, and some even heard what they described as sinister laughter. The curse is still feared today, with some players and fans performing protective rituals before important games. Despite the stadium's glorious history, the tale of the witch's curse continues to haunt its grounds. Story 14. The mysterious disappearance at Devil's Bowl Speedway, USA. Devil's Bowl Speedway in Texas has a reputation for being one of the most thrilling dirt tracks in the United States, but it's also the site of a bizarre and unsolved mystery. In the 1980s, a young and promising driver named Billy Rogers disappeared under inexplicable circumstances. During a particularly chaotic race, Rogers' car veered off the track and into a barrier. When the safety crew reached the car, they found it empty. There was no sign of Rogers anywhere on the track, in the pits, or even in the surrounding area. A massive search was conducted, but Rogers was never found. What makes this story even more eerie is that several drivers and spectators reported seeing Rogers' car appear on the track in the following years. It would materialize out of nowhere, race alongside the others for a few laps, and then vanish as quickly as it appeared. Some have claimed to see Rogers himself, his face pale and expressionless, behind the wheel. Despite the numerous investigations and theories, Rogers' disappearance remains a mystery. The legend of the ghost car of Devil's Bowl Speedway continues to send shivers down the spines of those who dare to race there. Story 15. The Shadow Boxer of York Hall, England. York Hall in London is one of the most famous boxing venues in the UK, known for its rich history of hosting thrilling bouts. But behind its storied past is a darker tale that has frightened many who have entered the ring there. In the 1950s, a boxer known only as Tommy died after a brutal match that left him unconscious in the ring. His death shocked the local boxing community, but it wasn't long before strange occurrences started happening at York Hall. Boxers training late at night began to report seeing a shadowy figure in the ring, throwing punches at an invisible opponent. This shadow boxer is said to move with the skill and grace of a professional, but his face is never fully visible. The air around the ring would grow cold, and a sense of unease would grip anyone watching. One young fighter, determined to debunk the legend, decided to train alone in the hall after midnight. As he entered the ring, he felt an unseen force strike him, knocking him to the canvas. When he looked up, he saw the faint outline of a boxer standing over him, fists raised. The figure then disappeared, leaving the young fighter shaken and convinced that Tommy's spirit was still in the ring, forever fighting a match that never ends. York Hall's reputation as a haunted venue has only grown since then, with many boxers refusing to train there alone, lest they encounter the shadow boxer still fighting his final round. Story 16. The Spectre of the Sundown Baseball Game, USA. The small town of Mineral Wells, Texas, is home to a forgotten baseball diamond that once buzzed with local games. In the 1940s, it was the site of a tragic event that has since become the stuff of legend. During a fiercely competitive game at sunset, a young player named Jimmy Sunshine Wilkins, known for his exceptional skills and cheerful demeanor, was struck in the head by a fastball. He collapsed instantly and never regained consciousness, dying on the field as the sun dipped below the horizon. After his death, locals began reporting eerie occurrences during twilight games. Players claimed to feel an inexplicable cold chill and a sense of foreboding as the sun began to set. Some even saw a ghostly figure standing in the outfield, staring blankly towards the pitcher's mound. This figure, believed to be Jimmy, would appear just as the last rays of sunlight disappeared, and the temperature would suddenly drop. The most unsettling reports came from those who stayed late into the evening. They spoke of hearing the sound of a ball being hit, followed by the distinct echo of cleats running the bases even though the field was empty. One team captain, determined to debunk the myth, organized a sundown game in the 1970s. As the game progressed into twilight, the players and spectators saw the unmistakable figure of Jimmy standing in the outfield. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the field into darkness. When they were restored, the figure was gone, but the feeling of dread lingered. The legend of Jimmy Sunshine Wilkins continues to haunt the baseball diamond, and the town has since abandoned evening games, with many locals believing that the ghost of Jimmy still roams the field, eternally waiting for a game that will never end. Story 17. The Ghostly Diver of Sydney Olympic Pool, Australia. The Sydney Olympic Park Aquatic Centre, built for the 2000 Summer Olympics, is a state-of-the-art facility known for hosting some of the most memorable swimming events in Olympic history. However, it's also the site of a ghostly tale that has unnerved many who have trained there. During the construction of the pool, a tragic accident occurred when a worker, who was an avid diver, fell from the high diving platform and drowned in the pool below. Since his death, there have been numerous reports of a ghostly diver appearing late at night, climbing the platform and executing perfect dives into the water. Swimmers training alone have claimed to see ripples in the water as if someone had just dived in, only to find the pool empty. Lifeguards on night shifts have reported hearing the sound of splashing and seeing a figure standing on the high dive platform, only for it to vanish when they approached. One particularly eerie incident involved a swimmer who stayed late to practice. As she finished her laps, she saw a man standing at the edge of the pool, looking down into the water. Assuming it was another swimmer, she called out, but he didn't respond. When she reached the edge, he was gone, but the water where he stood was disturbed, as if someone had just jumped in. The story of the ghostly diver has since become a well-known legend among the athletes who train there. While some dismiss it as a myth, others avoid the facility after dark, unwilling to risk encountering the spectral figure who continues to dive into the pool from beyond the grave. Story 18. The Phantom Coach of Old Trafford, England. Old Trafford, the iconic home of Manchester United, is a stadium steeped in history and glory. But beneath the surface of its storied past lies a darker, more unsettling tale. In the 1950s, a beloved coach named Bill the Boss Masters tragically died of a heart attack in the locker room just before a crucial match. His sudden death left the team and fans in shock, and his spirit is said to have never left the stadium. Players and staff have reported encountering the ghost of Coach Masters in the old locker room where he was last seen alive. Some have felt an invisible hand on their shoulder, giving them a reassuring pat, much like the way Coach Masters used to before a big game. Others have heard the sound of a whistle echoing through the empty halls, even when no one was around. One former player recounted a chilling experience. After a poor first half, he returned to the locker room alone to gather his thoughts. As he sat on the bench, he felt a sudden coldness and heard a voice behind him say, "You can do better, lad." Turning around, he saw no one, but the distinct scent of Coach Masters' pipe tobacco lingered in the air. The player returned to the field with renewed determination and played one of the best halves of his career. Even today, the ghost of Coach Masters is said to watch over the team, especially during moments of crisis. While his presence is largely viewed as a protective one, there's no denying the eerie feeling that accompanies his ghostly visits, reminding everyone that Old Trafford is not just a stadium, but a place where the past and present intertwine in mysterious ways. Story 21. The haunted locker room of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Canada. The Toronto Maple Leafs, one of the most storied franchises in the NHL, have their share of victories and heartbreaks. But there's a lesser-known tale that haunts their home, Scotiabank Arena. It's said that the locker room, where the team prepares for games, is the site of a lingering presence, a ghostly figure known as the Old Coach. In the 1960s, a beloved assistant coach passed away suddenly due to a heart attack right in the locker room. The team was devastated, and the memory of his dedication lived on. However, shortly after his death, strange things began happening in the locker room. Players reported hearing footsteps echoing through the empty corridors and seeing the faint outline of a man pacing near the chalkboard where strategies were drawn up. One night, after a particularly grueling game, a player stayed behind to reflect on his performance. He was alone in the locker room when he suddenly felt a chill and noticed the room's lights flickering. In the dim light, he saw the ghostly figure of the old coach standing by the chalkboard, silently motioning towards it as if drawing up a play. The player, frozen in fear, watched as the figure slowly faded away, leaving behind only the faint scent of tobacco, just like the coach used to smoke. Since then, the story of the old coach has been passed down among players, many of whom claim to have felt his presence, especially after tough losses. While some find comfort in the idea of the coach still watching over the team, others avoid being alone in the locker room, not wanting to encounter the ghostly figure that lingers, still strategizing for the Leafs long after his time. Story 22. The Ghost Golfer of Augusta National, USA. Augusta National Golf Club, home of the prestigious Masters Tournament, is a place where history and tradition are deeply revered. But it's also said to be haunted by the spirit of a former champion who met a tragic end. In the 1930s, a talented golfer named Robert "Bobby" Hutton won the Masters in a stunning upset, but his career was cut short by a freak accident in which he drowned in a nearby river during a practice session. His death shocked the golfing community, and some say his spirit never left Augusta. Golfers and caddies have reported seeing a man in vintage golfing attire walking the course late at night, particularly near Amen Corner, a notoriously challenging part of the course. This figure is often seen holding a putter, his expression one of intense concentration. Those who have seen him say he looks like he's lining up a crucial shot, only to disappear when approached. One caddy claimed to have seen Bobby's ghost during an early morning round. As his golfer lined up a putt, the caddy noticed a figure standing just off the green, watching intently. When the golfer made his shot, the figure smiled and nodded before fading away. The caddy later learned about Bobby Hutton and was convinced he had seen the legendary golfer's spirit still playing the course he loved so much. The legend of the ghost golfer adds a layer of mystique to Augusta National, a place where the past and present seem to coexist, and where some believe that Bobby Hutton's spirit continues to compete in the eternal tournament of the afterlife. Story 23. The Phantom Marathon of Athens, Greece. The Athens Marathon is one of the most historic and revered races in the world, tracing the route of the ancient marathoner who brought news of victory to Athens before collapsing and dying. But beyond this ancient legend lies a modern ghost story that has left many runners uneasy. In the early 1970s, a marathon runner named Kostas, who was known for his obsession with the sport, collapsed and died of exhaustion just before reaching the finish line. His untimely death was attributed to his relentless training and determination to win at all costs. Since then, runners in the Athens Marathon have reported seeing a spectral figure running alongside them, especially in the final stretch of the race. This ghostly runner is described as wearing outdated running gear and has a determined, almost desperate expression on his face. He is often seen pushing himself to the limit, only to vanish as the finish line comes into view. One marathoner recounted an experience where he felt an overwhelming urge to slow down, only to feel a sudden burst of energy as if someone were urging him on. When he looked to his side, he saw the faint outline of a runner who wasn't there moments before. The figure nodded encouragingly and then disappeared. The runner later learned about Kostas and was convinced that he had encountered the ghost of the marathoner, still trying to finish the race he never could. The story of the Phantom Marathoner has become part of the lore of the Athens Marathon, with many believing that Kostas' spirit continues to run the race year after year, forever striving to cross the finish line. Story 24. The Silent Swimmer of Loch Ness, Scotland. Loch Ness is famous for its legendary monster, but there's another, lesser-known tale that haunts its shores. In the 1930s, a swimmer named Angus MacLeod attempted to swim across the loch, hoping to set a record. Unfortunately, he never made it, disappearing into the misty waters without a trace. His body was never found, and his disappearance only added to the mysteries surrounding Loch Ness. Since then, people who visit the loch, especially during the early morning hours, have reported seeing a lone swimmer cutting through the water, only for the figure to disappear suddenly. Fishermen have heard the faint sound of splashing, followed by an eerie silence, and some have even seen ripples in the water as if someone were swimming nearby, though no one is ever seen. One local fisherman claimed to have seen Angus' ghostly figure swimming near the shore during a foggy morning. The figure swam with a strong, steady stroke, but vanished as the fisherman approached. Later, when he told his story to others, they pointed out the legend of Angus MacLeod, the swimmer who disappeared. The Silent Swimmer of Loch Ness is now a part of the loch's eerie reputation, a reminder that the waters hold more than just one mystery. Some believe that Angus' spirit is still trying to complete his swim, eternally bound to the cold, dark waters of Loch Ness. Story 25. The Ghostly Cricketer of Lords, England. Lord's Cricket Ground in London, known as the home of cricket, is a venue steeped in tradition and history. But among the tales of legendary matches and historic moments is a chilling story of a ghostly cricketer who is said to haunt the grounds. In the early 1900s, a promising young cricketer named Charlie Grimshaw died suddenly of pneumonia shortly before he was due to play in a crucial match at Lord's. His death was a tragic loss, and many believed he was destined for greatness. Since his death, there have been numerous reports of a ghostly figure seen practicing in the nets late at night, dressed in old-fashioned cricket whites. Groundskeepers have heard the sound of a cricket ball hitting the bat and the soft thud of the ball on the pitch, but when they investigate, they find the nets empty. One night, a security guard patrolling the grounds saw a figure batting in the nets. When he approached, the figure disappeared, leaving only a lone cricket ball resting on the pitch. The guard later learned about Charlie Grimshaw and realized that he had encountered the spirit of the young cricketer, still practicing for the match he never got to play. The Ghostly Cricketer of Lords is now a well-known legend among those who work at the ground, with some believing that Charlie's spirit still roams the hollowed turf, forever preparing for the game that never came. Story 26. The Phantom Jogger of Central Park, USA. Central Park in New York City is a bustling oasis in the heart of Manhattan, known for its picturesque scenery and vibrant atmosphere. But after dark, the park takes on a different, more eerie vibe, especially for those who are aware of the legend of the Phantom Jogger. In the 1970s, a dedicated jogger named Sarah ran the same route through Central Park every morning and evening. She was well known among regulars for her disciplined routine and friendly demeanor. Tragically, Sarah was struck by a car while crossing a road near the park one evening, and she died instantly. Her death shocked the local running community, and a memorial was held in her honor. Soon after her death, other joggers began reporting strange encounters. Some claimed to see a woman matching Sarah's description running along her usual route, only to disappear when they got closer. Others reported feeling an inexplicable chill or a sense of being watched while running in the early morning hours or at dusk. One jogger recounted an experience where she felt a presence running alongside her, keeping pace but remaining just out of sight. When she turned to look, she saw the faint outline of a woman who looked exactly like Sarah, before the figure faded into the mist. The jogger was left shaken but also felt a strange sense of comfort, as if Sarah was still enjoying her runs through the park. The legend of the Phantom Jogger has since become a well-known story among those who frequent Central Park. While some are unnerved by the idea of encountering a ghostly runner, others take solace in the thought that Sarah's spirit continues to do what she loved, even after death. Story 27. The Ghostly Fan of Fenway Park, USA. Fenway Park, the legendary home of the Boston Red Sox, is known for its passionate fans and storied history. But amid the cheers and excitement, there's a ghostly presence that has been reported by players and staff alike, known as the Ghostly Fan. In the 1940s, a devoted Red Sox fan named Harold Harry Smith attended every game he could, always sitting in the same seat along the third base line. Harry was known for his superstitions and rituals, which he believed helped the team. Sadly, Harry passed away suddenly during a game, and his seat was left empty for the rest of the season in his honor. Shortly after Harry's death, players and fans began reporting strange occurrences near his old seat. Some claimed to see a man dressed in old-fashioned clothing sitting there, cheering enthusiastically, only for him to vanish when they looked again. Players on the field have reported hearing a faint voice yelling encouragement, even when the area was empty. One former Red Sox player recounted a particularly eerie experience. During a crucial game, he was in a slump and struggling at the plate. As he approached the batter's box, he heard a voice from the stand say, "You got this, kid." The player turned to thank the fan but saw no one there. However, in Harry's old seat, he noticed a faint figure waving a cap. The player ended up hitting a game-winning home run and later swore that Harry's spirit had been there to cheer him on. The legend of the Ghostly Fan has become part of Fenway Park's folklore, with many believing that Harry's spirit still watches over the team, lending his support from beyond the grave. Even today, some fans leave a seat empty in his memory, hoping to catch a glimpse of the loyal host who refuses to miss a game. Story 28. The Cursed Gymnast of Bella Caroli's Ranch, USA. Bella Caroli's Ranch in Texas, once a training ground for America's elite gymnasts, is known for producing Olympic champions. However, it's also the site of a dark legend that has haunted the facility for years, the tale of the cursed gymnast. In the 1980s, a young gymnast named Emily was training for her chance at Olympic glory. She was incredibly talented but pushed herself to the limit, often ignoring injuries and fatigue. During one grueling practice session, Emily attempted a difficult routine but tragically fell from the uneven bars, suffering a fatal injury. Her death sent shockwaves through the gymnastics community, and the ranch was temporarily closed in mourning. When training resumed, strange things began to happen. Gymnasts and coaches reported feeling a sudden drop in temperature near the uneven bars, and some even saw the ghostly figure of a young girl practicing late at night. This figure was often seen attempting the same routine that Emily was performing when she died. One gymnast, who was alone in the gym late at night, claimed to have seen Emily's ghost on the uneven bars. The figure was practicing with intense focus, but when the gymnast approached, Emily's ghost lost her grip and fell to the floor, only to disappear before hitting the ground. The incident left the gymnast terrified and convinced that Emily's spirit was trapped in a cycle, endlessly trying to complete the routine that led to her death. the story of the cursed gymnast has become a cautionary tale among those who trained at the ranch, a reminder of the dangers of pushing too hard and the tragic consequences that can follow. While the ranch is no longer in use, the legend of Emily's ghost continues to haunt the memories of those who spent time there, a spectral reminder of the high cost of perfection in the world of gymnastics. Story 30. The Haunted Basketball Court of Rucker Park, USA. Rucker Park in Harlem, New York, is a legendary basketball court known for hosting some of the greatest street ball games in history. But beneath the high-flying dunks and intense competition lies a chilling tale that has spooked players and spectators alike, the story of the haunted court. In the 1980s, a talented streetball player named Big Joe Johnson was a local legend at Rucker Park. Known for his incredible skills and larger-than-life personality, Big Joe was destined for greatness. Tragically, during a heated game, he collapsed on the court and died of a heart attack, leaving the community in shock. Soon after his death, strange things began happening at Rucker Park. Players reported seeing a shadowy figure on the court late at night, dribbling a basketball with unmatched skill. This figure, believed to be Big Joe's ghost, would disappear when approached but left behind the sound of a bouncing basketball echoing through the empty court. One night, a group of players decided to test the legend and stayed at the park after dark. As they played, the streetlights flickered, and they heard the unmistakable sound of a basketball being dribbled nearby. When they turned to look, they saw the faint outline of a tall man playing alone on the far end of the court. The figure moved with the same grace and power that Big Joe was known for, but when the players approached, the ghost vanished into thin air. The legend of the haunted court has become part of the mystique of Rucker Park, a place where the past and present collide on the asphalt. Some players believe that Big Joe's spirit still roams the court, forever playing the game he loved, while others avoid the park after dark, not wanting to encounter the ghostly figure that continues to haunt the playground of legends. Story 31. The Curse of the Chicago Cubs and the Billy Goat, USA. The Chicago Cubs, one of Major League Baseball's most iconic teams, were plagued by what fans called the Curse of the Billy Goat for over 70 years. This curse wasn't just a string of bad luck, it's said to have a supernatural origin tied to a bizarre incident at Wrigley Field in 1945. During the 1945 World Series, a man named Billy Scariest, owner of the Billy Goat Tavern, brought his pet goat, Murphy, to Wrigley Field. Despite having tickets, Scariest and his goat were ejected from the stadium because the goat's odor was bothering other fans. Furious, Scariest allegedly cursed the Cubs, declaring that they would never win another World Series. What followed was one of the longest championship droughts in sports history, marked by a series of bizarre and heartbreaking losses that seemed to defy explanation. From routine ground balls being botched to key players getting injured at the worst possible moments, the Cubs seemed to be under a spell. Throughout the decades, many fans believed in the power of the curse. Some even claimed to have seen strange occurrences at Wrigley Field. During night games, groundskeepers reported hearing the faint bleating of a goat and seeing shadowy figures in the stands long after the games had ended. In 2003, the curse reared its head again during Game 6 of the National League Championship Series. The Cubs were just 5 outs away from the World Series when a fan, Steve Bartman, interfered with a foul ball, preventing Cubs outfielder Moises Alou from making a crucial catch. The Cubs went on to lose the game and the series, adding another chapter to the curse's lore. It wasn't until 2016, after numerous attempts to break the curse, including bringing a goat back to Wrigley Field, that the Cubs finally won the World Series, ending the 108-year drought. Even then, some fans believe that the spirits of the past had to be appeased for the curse to be lifted, leaving a legacy that still haunts Wrigley Field. Story 34. The Phantom Skier of Mount Washington, USA. Mount Washington in New Hampshire is known for its extreme weather and challenging skiing conditions. But among the tales of daring ski runs and near misses is the story of the Phantom Skier, a ghostly figure that has been spotted by skiers and hikers alike. In the 1930s, a skilled skier named Jack Thompson was caught in a sudden blizzard while skiing down the Tuckerman Ravine Trail. Despite his experience, Jack lost his way in the whiteout conditions and was never seen alive again. His body was found days later, frozen and covered in snow, with his skis still strapped to his feet. Since Jack's death, skiers and mountaineers have reported seeing a lone figure gliding down the slopes during severe weather, always moving with an eerie calmness, even in the most treacherous conditions. This figure is often seen during blizzards, silently skiing through the snow before disappearing into the mist. One skier recounted a terrifying experience when he was caught in a sudden snowstorm on the same trail where Jack had died. Disoriented and fearing for his life, the skier saw a man dressed in old-fashioned ski gear gliding effortlessly down the slope. Desperate for help, the skier followed, but as he neared the figure, it vanished into the swirling snow, leaving the skier to navigate the storm on his own. He later realized that he had encountered the phantom skier and felt fortunate to have made it off the mountain alive. The legend of the phantom skier serves as a haunting reminder of the dangers that Mount Washington holds, where nature's fury can take even the most experienced by surprise. Some believe that Jack's spirit continues to ski the mountain, forever lost in the blizzard that claimed his life. Story 35. The Ghost of the Maracanã Stadium, Brazil. Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro is one of the most iconic football venues in the world, known for hosting the 1950 FIFA World Cup final, where Brazil suffered a heartbreaking defeat to Uruguay in what is known as the Maracanazo. But beyond the game's tragic history lies a ghostly tale that has haunted the stadium for decades. The night before the final, a young Brazilian fan named Jose was so confident of his team's victory that he vowed to celebrate at the stadium for the rest of his life. Tragically, when Brazil lost, Jose was inconsolable. He reportedly died by suicide in the stadium that very night, unable to bear the defeat. Since then, many have reported seeing Jose's ghost in the stadium, especially during crucial matches. Fans and staff alike have seen a lone figure dressed in Brazil's colors, sitting in the stands with a fallen expression. This figure is often seen near the seats where Jose was known to sit, disappearing when approached. One security guard shared a chilling story of encountering Jose's ghost late one night after a game. While doing his rounds, the guard saw a man sitting in the stands, long after everyone else had left. When he approached to ask the man to leave, the figure looked up with a sad smile and vanished before his eyes. The guard, shaken, later learned about Jose and realized he had seen the ghost of the heartbroken fan. The ghost of Maracanã has become part of the stadium's lore, a symbol of the deep emotions that football can evoke. Some fans leave a seat empty in Jose's memory during important matches, honoring the ghost who remains forever bound to the stadium and the team he loved so much. Story 36. The Cursed Gym of St. Anthony's High School, USA. St. Anthony's High School in New Jersey was once known for its powerhouse basketball team, dominating local tournaments and producing numerous college-bound athletes. But behind the success lies a story of tragedy and haunting that has plagued the school's gymnasium for decades. In the early 1970s, during a high-stakes game, a young player named Tommy, who was considered the heart and soul of the team, collapsed on the court after making the game-winning shot. Despite immediate medical attention, Tommy tragically passed away from an undiagnosed heart condition. His death sent shockwaves through the school and the community, casting a dark shadow over the basketball program. After Tommy's death, strange occurrences began to be reported in the gym. The basketball court where he died became a site of unexplained events. Basketballs bouncing on their own, the sound of squeaking sneakers with no one on the court, and the faint sound of a crowd cheering when the gym was empty. These eerie happenings led many to believe that Tommy's spirit was still present, unable to leave the place where he had spent so many hours of his young life. One particularly chilling story involves a late-night practice session. The coach and a few players were staying late to work on their plays when suddenly, the lights in the gym flickered and the scoreboard, which had been turned off, flashed Tommy's jersey number -23. As the players stood frozen in shock, they heard the unmistakable sound of a basketball swishing through the hoop, though no one had taken a shot. The ball rolled slowly to the center of the court, stopping precisely at the spot where Tommy had collapsed. The story of the cursed gym has become part of St. Anthony's lore, with some players refusing to practice alone after dark. Though the school's basketball team has seen many successes since Tommy's death, the gymnasium remains a place where the past lingers, and the memory of the young player who died too soon continues to haunt those who step onto the court. Story 37. The Phantom Swimmer of the Sydney Olympic Pool, Australia. The Sydney Olympic Pool, home to many of Australia's greatest swimmers, has a reputation for being one of the most prestigious swimming venues in the world. But beyond the gold medals and world records lies a chilling tale of a phantom swimmer who is said to haunt the pool. In the late 1960s, a promising young swimmer named Karen was training for the Olympics when tragedy struck. During an early morning practice, Karen was found drowned in the pool under mysterious circumstances. It was believed that she had suffered a cramp or a sudden medical issue, but the exact cause of her death was never determined. Her passing was a devastating loss to the Australian swimming community. Not long after Karen's death, strange things began happening at the pool. Swimmers reported seeing a figure in the water, moving with unnatural speed and grace, even when the pool was supposed to be empty. Others claimed to feel a sudden chill in the water or hear the sound of splashing when no one was swimming. One coach shared a particularly eerie experience. During a late-night training session, he noticed ripples in the pool, as if someone was swimming, but the water was completely still. As he walked closer, he saw a faint, ghostly outline of a swimmer gliding through the water. When he called out, the figure vanished, leaving the pool eerily silent. The story of the phantom swimmer has become a well-known legend among the swimmers who train at the Sydney Olympic Pool. Some believe that Karen's spirit continues to swim, eternally chasing the dream of Olympic glory that she never achieved in life. Whether seen as a protective presence or a haunting reminder of a tragic loss, the phantom swimmer remains an unsettling figure in the world of Australian swimming. Story 38. The Ghosts of Hillsborough Stadium, England. Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield, England, is forever associated with one of the darkest days in football history, the Hillsborough disaster of 1989, when 96 Liverpool fans lost their lives in a tragic crush during an FA Cup semi-final match. The stadium has since been a place of mourning, remembrance, and some say, haunting. In the years following the disaster, numerous reports of ghostly encounters began to emerge. Security staff and stadium workers have claimed to hear the sound of chanting and cheering in the empty stands, as if a ghostly crowd is still watching a match. Others have reported seeing shadowy figures in the corridors and concourses, moving silently through the stadium. One of the most chilling stories comes from a security guard who was on duty late at night. While making his rounds, he heard the faint sound of singing the Liverpool anthem, "You'll Never Walk Alone," coming from the stands. As he approached, the singing grew louder, but when he entered the stand, it was completely empty. The guard, deeply unsettled, felt an overwhelming sense of sadness and left the stadium, convinced that he had heard the voices of those who lost their lives in the disaster. The ghostly activity at Hillsborough Stadium is seen by many as the spirits of the 96, forever tied to the place where they met their tragic end. The stadium remains a site of remembrance, with many paying their respects to the victims each year. The haunting presence at Hillsborough is a somber reminder of the disaster that shook the football world and the enduring impact it has on those who were affected.